when you're in the new year and the Venezuelan president gets kidnapped. Guys, we're starting off crazy this year. I mean, just new levels of like what is going on. It is completely crazy that we're in 2026 and we literally kidnapped the Venezuelan president. That is crazy. That is next level of like what is going on in the world. And so essentially, if you don't know or if you haven't been watching, like seeing what's going on, or like the photos or the memes or like some of the news cycles going on. So apparently, the Venezuelan president, right, whose name was Nicolas Maduro, and he had been. So the US, Russia, China, everybody's trying to like become best friends with Venezuela because they have a lot of oil. And recently we have been like, well, he got captured like pretty recently, but for months the US has been monitoring this guy, trying to figure out like his every single step, his every single plan. It's just so that they can take him. And so they had been monitoring the president for some time, the Venezuelan president, Maduro. And essentially they created like a small team. So it was like a small like special operations team, and their main job was to go in there, monitor him every single day for weeks, months at a time, and figure out every single little detail about him, what he ate, where he slept, the clothes that he wore, and like even who, like his dogs, his cats, his like, women, you know what I mean? Like people out there as well. So it's like what does he do? What makes him tick? Like figure out every single thing about him. And it made me think about like Ocean's 11, where they have to spy on the owner of the casino and figure out like his daily routine. You know how like in the movie where Matt Damon follows Andy Garcia throughout the casino, and then he like does the breakdown. And he's like, man, this guy is nonstop. He does this, he does that. Everything works like clockwork, and he knows everything that's going on in the casino. He follows everything like he runs a tight ship essentially, and he's like a really smart guy. And so they do that to him. So they're planning all of this. They have this whole thing set up, and they were like, all right, we got a mission here, and they called it Operation Absolute Resolve. And they were like, all right, we're putting this team together, we're getting everybody ready, and we gotta go get this guy. We're gonna go bring him in, because I mean, drugs and weapons are kind of like a big no-no. So I think those are the big charges that the US is going after him now. But I think it's mainly, about the oil. But anyways, we're looking at it right now, and they did like a bunch of, so not only were they getting good intel from the people that were spying on him, from the people who were like keeping up with him. So he was telling like everybody in the military, or like the people who were on the team that were spying on him, coming back to the US military, telling him like this is where he sleeps, this is what his house looks like, this is where he hangs out, this is what his office is, this is what's going on, you know what I'm saying? They were giving them preparation to plan and to rehearse. So it's like we land the helicopter down on the roof, and then we choose this exit, and then we enter here and we capture him here. If he goes here, we can go there. And I never really thought about, I mean, obviously I've thought about like missions and what it takes to like go in there and get the guy, or to do a mission. Like I've thought about it, but when you watch it in like television or in movies, they make it seem like so quick. They don't really break it down in terms of like this is our entrances, these are our exits. It's more so like we arrived, break door down and walk in, you know what I'm saying? I guess there are more realistic depictions like I mean, I don't know. Me personally, I can't think of any, but like maybe in like a more realistic approach, like maybe Zero Dark 30, they have a scene where they break it all down, where they talk about how they go capture Osama bin Laden or something like that, or maybe there are a few documentaries that really like highlight the military process. But I doubt they would want to do that, because then you kind of alert everybody to like your process and how long it takes and stuff. So I don't know. Anyways, they had planning and they did rehearsals. So apparently they made like a full exact replica of his like safe house. So they found the Venezuelan president's Maduro's they found his safe house and they were just like, this is where we're going to go get him. And they built an exact replica of it. They built like a whole stage of it. And I was like, the first thing that came into my mind was like, this is like a movie. And I was like, who's paying for all this? And I was like, we are, the taxes. I was like, this is crazy that this is what our tax dollars are at work here for, is that they can build sets and go and copy and do other things. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? I don't know why I was thinking about it like a movie, like a production set, and I was just like, man, they're building like a whole production here, you know what I mean? And I was like, who's paying for all this? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking about it like, who are the producers of this so-called theater play? And then it turns out it's like, oh yeah, that's us. We're paying taxes, and they have all the money in the world to do this stuff and to do things right with precision. So I kind of think about it like, man, it would be so funny if the U.S. government funded like some actual sets for movies. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Entertainment's fine. I'm just saying, like, I thought it was funny. So they use that exact replica to like practice their whatchamacallit. They used it to practice their entrances and exits. Like, how are we going to get into the place? How are we going to get out? What route are we taking? What's the quickest way in and out of there in easy time? You know what I mean? Who do we have to go through? So essentially, what happened was they go in there and they don't tell Congress. They don't like go through the process of like, hey, we have this mission. We would like Congress's approval to kind of give us like, hey, we're gonna go do this thing. You know, what do you guys think? Like there was no consultation, there was nothing. They weren't even told about it. Congress was just kind of like, whatever, we're gonna go do this, and they did it. And I don't know if that's like wrong. I mean, mostly because the president's powers executive, but I do feel like, I mean, I feel like somebody else should have known to figure out like what the legal ramifications would be. But anyways, we go out there and they wait until like the right moment to capture him, or like they wait until like, all right, we know where he's going to be and we're going to do it this day. And then the process it would take to like get there, capture him, bring him back with like minimum effort, and easy does it. So they were waiting for like the big surprise, like, we got, you know what I mean? They were waiting for the best moment to surprise him or to get him where it's he can't do anything. So they waited, and apparently it was on the 3rd, January 3rd, where all the pieces, or maybe it was the 2nd, where they like started, and then the 3rd that night was like, all right, we got him. So anyways, and it's saying, I'm reading the article, it's saying that like there's oh wow, they actually were planning to do this last year, late into the night, but the weather wasn't all perfect, so they needed to do it on a different day. So anyways, so everybody over Christmas and the New Year were ready to go, but not everything was perfect. You know what I mean? The weather, the clouds, things were not at their optimal. So they just decided to wait on it, sit on it for a little bit. And that's what General Dan Kane, highest ranking military officer, told news conference on Saturday morning. And then the order came to start the mission from President Trump, which was just crazy. And yeah, he got out there, and within, okay, so it's saying it took 2 hours and 27 mission by air, land and sea that stunned. Okay. So I guess most of the time that it took to get him was like traveling there. And then in terms of like actually getting him and stuff like that. It was pretty easy. And so, anyways, they got him. They brought him back. Oh, and there's that photo of Trump and all of the advisors like looking around, and then you see behind them that they're looking up Venezuela on Twitter. I was just kind of like, this is so unserious. Like, I can't believe this is what we're really doing. And then on the picture, you can see like an emoji sad face, and you're just kind of like, what is going on? This isn't like proper. Like, this isn't the real situation room. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of funny that this is what's going on in our lives, or this is who's leading the country and whatnot. So, anyways, um, let me think. They get the guy, they bring him back, and now he's currently at court. Um, I imagine that they went through any number of ideas to like capture him. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like you get a bigger team, you get a bigger amount of people to go over to Venezuela to pick him up. But in the end, I think they went with a little bit easier. I don't know. It just feels like things could have been a lot more complicated if they allowed it to be or whatnot. I don't know. So then, oh snap! They dropped bombs, or they did loud explosions, and I guess that kind of like signaled that they were there, and they were flying all over the city. So they were kind of all over the area. But then again, nobody knew what was going on. Wow, this is a very intricate. And it says they knew we were coming. So I don't know. This is all crazy. And then you see the memes of like everybody making fun of like Maduro sleeping, and right next to him you see the like a military officer. You see a military man next to him in his full gear, and he's just kind of like, shh, you know what I mean? He's just kind of like, wake up, Mr. President, you know what I'm saying? And then they drag him out of bed, and yeah, it's crazy. It must have been wild for him to be like kidnapped and taken. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is wild that they're doing this. So, anyways, they broke in, and then I don't know if they took his wife as well, or if they just took him. I'm pretty sure they just took him, right? And left her there. And so they basically took him, and now he's waiting in court, and he's pleading not guilty to the charges of drugs and weapon charges that, I mean, I could probably look it up. I should look it up for sake, you know what I mean, to get this podcast moving. But all I'm trying to say here is that this is wild. This is absolutely crazy. It is next level of changes that I feel like we're all kind of like, we don't feel like this is like history in the making, because we're just like making fun of it or poking fun at it or whatnot. But it's more so like, this is really wild. And it's a crazy example of like how quickly things can change. So, anyways, they say, "Let me be clear." Oh wait, who said this? Okay, so oh, they did take his wife, or they seized her. I don't know what that means. If do they seize her, or does that mean she stays in Venezuela, or does she come to the U.S. too? Hmm, very weird. But the U.S. Congress was not totally happy. So, anyways, they say, let me be clear, Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate dictator, but launching military action without congressional authorization and without a credible plan for what comes next is reckless. And that was somebody from the Senate. So, somebody was pretty unhappy with the choices that they made. And I don't know, yes, it's wrong, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. He's not excusing what this guy is doing as like a dictator, but at the same time, it's still reckless to go pick him up. You know what I mean? It's imagine anything else could go wrong. You know what I'm saying? I don't think any. Fortunately, I don't think any U.S. soldiers died. Maybe only the Venezuelan soldiers who were like protecting him, which is also sad. You know what I mean? You don't want anybody to get hurt, but that's the nature of this kind of job or what they're doing. Anyways, they go and they pick him up, and I don't know. Wow. So they go into a safe house, and then he realizes that they're coming after him or somebody's in the compound, and then he's like, I'm trying to rush off somewhere. He's trying to get to a safe room, but then they already knew the whole layout, so they knew how to get there. So they had it all figured out. He was never gonna make it. So it just he got to the door, but he wasn't able to close it. He got bum rushed so fast that he didn't get into that room. Um, wow. They asked him. They asked President Trump if they could have killed Maduro, an authoritarian leader who took over the presidency in 2013, if he had resisted arrest, and Trump said it could have happened. That is crazy. Okay, so some guys were hit on, like, military guys from the U.S. Some U.S. military guys were hit, but they didn't die, so they weren't killed. I mean, troopers, crazy. Ah, the Venezuelan defense minister Vladimir Padrino said a large part of Maduro's security team and soldiers and innocent civilians were killed in the U.S. operation. That's sad. You never want the civilians caught up into it. The soldiers, you can kind of, his security team, you can kind of understand. You know what I mean? That's their job. They were trying to protect them. They got in the way and you know what I mean? But the civilians, that's awful. You never want that. So, anyways, the U.S. offered a $50 million reward for Maduro's arrest, but the custody of the U.S. Department of Justice, um, they basically took him into custody, so they didn't have to pay anybody, and they ultimately flew the helicopter back through New York past the Statue of Liberty, which was kind of like Trump trying to be poetic of like, here, look at the Statue of Liberty while we're crossing past them, even though he was kind of blindfolded. Anyways, um, yeah, right now they're in New York City and expected to face criminal charges. So I think they did take the wife as well. Yep, that is crazy, and I read that on the BBC uh, on the BBC website. It's called "Spies, Drones, and Blowtorches: How the U.S. Captured Maduro" by Gareth Evans. So if you ever want to read the article yourself, this is kind of what I kind of just summarize. I just kind of said everything. But anyways, this is insane. This is crazy. This is next level. I mean, they're shaking things up. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know long term how this is going to obviously affect everybody, but I would imagine people would. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It could go either way. It could go good, or it could go so extremely bad that, I mean, we really have no idea of. I really don't know. I don't know. I think obviously dictators should not be here, right? Like there shouldn't be any dictators, but at the same time, it's the restructuring that's going to take the longest, and I don't know how well that'll work out for everybody in the end. So we kind of have to figure it out like one day at a time, just to kind of learn about what's next for them. Today it's about us and us succeeding in capturing him, and then tomorrow it's Venezuela having a civil war trying to figure out who should be the next person in power and whatnot. So it's insane. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's nuts. And it's the only thing that's like, I'm thinking about it and I'm constantly like, this is such huge news, and we don't know how things are going to play out moving forward, and how the rest of the world is going to respond, and what happens with all of the Venezuelan oil and stuff. So how is this is a huge shakeup to the world, and for the time being US were kind of in charge. I mean, kind of, not really. I guess we'll wait until things settle down, but yeah, I don't know. This is this is wild. And yeah, we're just going to have to wait a little bit to figure out what happens next. What do we do next? But yeah, they caught the guy, and all of the memes are so funny. They're very hilarious. They're very good. Um, and just to think, like 5 years ago, for like on 2021, there was like around this time they were doing riots at the Capitol for President Trump, and now Trump is president again, and he's kidnapped the president of Venezuela, which is wild. It would have been wild if they did this last year during Christmas. That would have been crazy. But obviously, they did it now. This is a crazy way to kick off 2026. And so, I don't know, man. Things are looking crazy. Things are looking scary. So, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm I'm really curious to see how this keeps on going. This happens today. It's the big headlines right now, but 10 years time, 2036, and we see how this changed things. Did it change things for the better? Did it change things for the worse? Now, I would like to be optimistic here and say that things are better without a dictator in rule, but what's to stop another dictator from coming up, and another one, or somebody else who's undeserving of the power to lead the people, and of that level of control? You know what I mean? So, what can we really do except watch and, I don't know, maybe figure out like how certain types of activism can help Venezuela out. I don't know. We're kind of got we can't do anything right now. All that we do know is that he's in custody, and they got him in the same jail cell as Luigi Mangione. And then they have Diddy in there. They got like R. Kelly in there. They got everybody in jail there in New York. So what's really gonna happen out there? You know what I'm saying? They got everybody in. They're gonna have everybody in that New York prison, that New York jail. You know what I mean? They have the president of Venezuela, Luigi. They got Diddy in there. They have so many other people that it's kind of a wild prison. And I saw a bunch of people being like, they're calling it Arkham Asylum. They're calling it, you know what I mean? They're going to form a suicide squad. Like, real talk. Like, it's so funny. And it's kind of crazy that they're lumping in, like, Luigi Mangione with these guys because he didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? He didn't do it at all. So the fact that he's getting lumped in with these real criminals is crazy. But he's in there. He's in there. And it's kind of like, he's the, you know what? There is always kind of like that one person in prison who's like, I was wrongly accused, and he has like a heart of gold. That's Luigi. He's the good guy of the group. All the other guys are insane psychos. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of funny to have the president of Venezuela in a New York jail, in a New York prison. So we're gonna wait and see, but it's crazy. It's really wild. And so yeah, recently, Maduro went to court and he pleaded not guilty. And yeah, that's where we're at right now. We'll see how long this takes to get justice served, but I imagine it'll be a pretty quick process. I'm pretty sure they want to do this like as fast as possible so that way they get him behind bars and they can start focusing on their attention on Venezuela and how to transition them into a better political system. So that's where we are right now as of the start of the year. And I have to say, as crazy as this is, I mean, this could be a great example of like how we can, prepare ourselves, because this is nuts. This is wild. But then we can kind of respond to it in the right way. You know what I'm saying? Is like you can see this as you could see this as like, oh, I'm just going to brush it off. It doesn't mean anything. Or you can look at it and be like, this is wild and I have to brace myself for impact because something bad's about to go down. So you gotta get ready. But we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, other than that, I just want to say, just when you think your safe house is safe, you know what I'm saying? Just when you think that it's like perfectly fine and nobody's watching you, you know what I'm saying? Because that's got to be crazy for him, is that he had people on his team or his security or people on like spying on him, getting surveillance on this guy, figuring out what he wears and what he eats, and then the next day he's getting taken. You know what I'm saying? So just be cautious out there. Never feel like you're being paranoid. You're probably right. So anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Yeah, and happy 2026. Thank you.